I hope you've been enjoying your conference so far. My name is Méline Lafabrie. I am the founder of IDONI, which is a young organization that connects journalists and agents of change to tell powerful, constructive, and inclusive stories in which we center human experiences and voices. So as you know, today's session is all about drafting a collaborative guide to reframe peace building in journalism. And at IDONI, we're a young organization, but we're already, really sure of our values and what we stand for. And one of the things that we're convinced of is that the exchange of ideas, practices, and experiences, I'm sorry, my voice is a bit gone today, out of all days, is absolutely essential to produce good journalism that is accurate and empowers people. So, as you know, journalism plays a key role in how conflicts are understood and resolved. And for that, we want journalists to be better equipped to report, especially on peace building initiatives. And for that, we need you, because who better than people who are involved on those topics to tell us what is needed, what is missing out of the narratives, and how to do better. So the way this session is going to go is we're going to start by a little role play to get the conversation started. And then based on the role play that we'll have a moment where you can exchange a bit more of your own perspective, build on your own experiences, and share with everyone else. And based on all this conversation that I hope you'll find very interesting, we'll draft a few recommendations that will be the base for the guide. We want this to be as interactive and as collaborative as possible, so please do not be shy. Actually, of relies on you loud sharing your experiences, because it's all about different grids. We will publish the guide in a couple of months, a few weeks, and we want to invite all of you to keep working on it with us. If you want to be updated, if you want to take part in editing or such, we will share with you a form so we can get in touch with you and let you know what is going on, how the progress is that we're making, and just keep you updated, because we do not the Organization for Security, Safety, Privacy data, with very good reasons, is not sharing it with them. So if you want to be updated, you have to give us the information. So before we start, I'm going to introduce my wonderful team. All of us are members of IDONI, but they are also great professionals. So I'll start with Yusur, who is joining us from Egypt. She worked in academia and think tanks, and right now she is currently a New Gen Fellow at the Arab Council of the Social Science and of the Social Science and Humanitarian Action Platform, and finishes an LLM degree in Public International Law at the American University of Cairo. I hope all of this was right, Yusur. If not, feel free to correct me. Then we have Iliana joining us from Germany. She specializes in alternative forms of transitional justice with a focus on art-based participatory peace-building mechanisms in countering socialization to conflict, especially in Cyprus and Palestine, Israel. Then we have Nicolas joining us from France. He's an independent consultant and trainer with a focus on peace building and conflict transformation. He's currently working with vulnerable groups in reconciliation and peace issues in the South Caucasus and affected societies. And myself, I'm Méline, as I just mentioned. I'm the founder of IDONI, but I'm also a journalist. I specialize in human rights and social conflict. And I'm also a trainer in solution journalism, constructive covering of social conflicts, and journalist safety. So now let's get to it. We're going to start our role-playing session in breakout rooms. Each group will be given an article to read, and then we'll discuss. We have a task and a question to help the conversation going. This exercise is based on a conflict Ileana and User imagined for this specific exercise. It's not meant to refer to any specific situation. And I split up in 4 different groups.
Meline, you're muted, I think.
Yes, here I am. I'm just going to quickly summarize the conflict for everyone so we can go into breakout rooms. Very simply, and the articles that you're going to read are going to give you more information, but just to have a general idea, the core conflict is between two peoples. So they live in Alpha Land. It's long-standing conflict between indigenous Betans or people of Beta and the Gamans, and primarily centered around the Hakuna River and its resources. That's what the conflict is over. And Alpha Land is home to Alphans, Betans, and Gamans all together, yet the conflict is between these two people. They had a civil war over the resources. So the Betans are indigenous to the southern part of Alpha Land, and the Gamans are originally displaced from a neighboring country. In both countries, Alpha Land and the country of the Gamans were colonized by a colonial power by the name Atuzilia. And they have been living for several decades now in Alpha Land, on which you will see in the articles for several decades along each other. And now there's a planned proposal for a construction of a dam by the Hakuna River, and that's intended to address the resource management issues. And now this is also striking a conflict again between these two peoples. So the government is proposing a roundtable discussion in a city called Kozran in the north of the country to be able to pursue peace building efforts. So now we're going to get into role playing in breakout rooms, and you'll be asked to summarize how you're going to understand the conflict in a tweet in just 240 characters. But then I'll leave my colleagues to continue and take that from there.
Yes, we hope you enjoyed reading the articles and role-playing a little bit. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask each group to share their tweet as well as their general thoughts very briefly in their assigned roles. So please don't forget, we're still in the role-play part of the exercise. So we want to hear your perspective from your assigned roles. And yeah, let's get started, I would say. So group 1, Ministry of Development in Alpha Land, would you like to start by sharing your tweet?
Hi, everybody. We're Group 1. We're the Ministry of Development in Alpha Land. So we have a cool little AI-powered tweet to get us into the 240 characters. And it goes as follows. In Alpha Land, local Gamins and Badens must gather at a round table. Shared water resources unite us. Let's bridge cultures, pull wisdom, and build trust. Together, we'll flow toward peace. Hashtag water for all, hashtag community unity.
Interesting, thank you. What about the missing voices question?
We had a general consensus, and Meline, please help me out if I missed this, but that we're missing critical voices, and mostly the Badens and Gamins themselves. As the Ministry of Development for Alpha Land, we feel clearly we have a good understanding of what Alpha Land believes and supports, but we don't really know if all the other stakeholders, mainly Betas and Gamins, agree with this.
And
Right.
also just, we were reading an article from the Alpha Land Sun because we had 2 different articles, so it's in the name what voices could be missing.
Great, thank you. Group 2, Collective of Baton People. Are you ready to share your thoughts?
We as the Batons are ready to share our thoughts in the form of a tweet that might be a little bit more than 240 characters. So please forgive us for that slight oversight. The tweet is as follows. The Baton community feels that Alphans are moving forward with their global development goals as part of a modernization plan at the expense of the Betons. Further engagement with Betons is needed before taking any steps forward in the development of the new dam. And just to elaborate on that, we felt that the article was very top-down and from the perspective of the Betons, and it did not address much of what the Beton community felt. We as a local community would like to know what technical experts think of this project, and we also feel that we feel offended is one way of putting it, because the project for the dam has gotten to the stage where it's at right now, and we would have appreciated being informed or involved in the decision-making process earlier on, and this proposed roundtable seems like a performative gesture at this stage. So we feel frustrated. And in terms of the other questions that were asked, what missing voices did we identify? We said Betins and Gamans, and any other local people who live in the local area. There's no perspective of relevant experts, engineers, environmentalists, economists. That would have, of course, been helpful to understand the other impacts that can be had from the dam project. And as are there any opportunities for peace building? We said yes, of course. I think a starting point could just be looking at the article and identifying the weaknesses of the article and using that as a launching point for engaging important stakeholders. And if
Great, thank you so
anything
much.
else, team fill in, but yeah, that was the gist.
Thank you so much. Right, now moving on to the groups that read the article from the Betaland Daily. So group 3, the Alphans in Alphaland. Could you please share your thoughts?
Yes, so our tweet is as follows. Alphans, upcoming meeting to discuss tensions amongst different communities. Let's make sure our perceptions are represented and avoid a one-sided dialogue. Still, we recognize the importance of water to all 3 constituencies. Overall, our feeling is that the article, the narrative just favors the Betins. It doesn't really include anything from Alphans or Gammons. And it also does not acknowledge, as an Alphan, we are offended that there was no recognition that the Alphan government is the one that called this meeting to address the tensions. So we feel it does not really tell the whole story.
Great, thank you so much. And now last but not least, group 4, the Collective of Gammon People. Could you please share your tweet?
We can hear you.
Do you mean me?
Sorry, no, I just unmuted myself. So it says Baton protesters dam project proposal. I'm sorry, let me read that again. Baton protesters protest dam proposal, which is in the Gammon-Baton conflict zone. Gammons are left out of the story. Is it time for them to be displaced again after their first displacement? So it ends as a question. We felt, to answer the second question, we felt that Gammon people were left out of the article, and also it's really keeps things in the realm of politics without addressing human needs, like what are the human needs that the dam would serve, like water for all or water for Gammons. And then does it present any opportunities for peace building or conflict resolution? I guess we would say just inviting Gammons to have a seat at the table. It just shows how left out of the process we are.
Interesting. Thanks a lot. Well, these have been interesting perspectives to listen to. So thank you for sharing your tweets and your thoughts. What I'm going to ask you to do now is leave behind the role play and put on your peace builder hats again. So what we're going to do now is we're going to share a fact sheet with you to provide you with some additional information about the conflict that was described in the articles, as well as the peace building initiative. And then we're going to give you 2 to 3 minutes to read this fact sheet, and then we're going to ask you to sort of reevaluate as peace builders how this situation, this conflict, and this peace initiative were covered. So yes, Nicolas sent the link to the fact sheet in the chat, and we're going to give you 2 to 3 minutes to read through it.
And if you have any questions, of course, at any point, we're just here to answer. Take over from now, if this is okay. Perfect. Okay, so as Iliana told you, now you're not anymore someone from Alpha Land, Gamma Land, or something else. You are a peace building practitioner. So you change the hat and you move. So now the goal of this part would be to understand what could be done better in the way peace building initiatives are covered. I mean, this is where we want to lead you. So if you have any thoughts about how how peace building initiatives can be improved, do not hesitate to share your thoughts. So now this is like a discussion, Q&A session. I mean, you can answer and just chat between you, and you can also help you from the question, the optional question of the breakout room. So if there is any opportunities for peace building or conflict resolution in the article, what are they? And what are the strategies, the solutions mentioned to contribute to address these issues at hand? So, yeah, I mean, floor is yours. What are the opportunities, obstacles? What do you think about that?
Can you clarify the question again? Is it from a reporting perspective or overall conflict resolution perspective?
It's from a conflict resolution perspective, from you as a peace builder, as a real human. We're not anymore in the role play. Is it clear?
Yeah, it's clear now. Thank you. Two immediate conflict resolution strategies come to mind. When we're doing negotiation, there's three primary negotiation styles. And I'll try to make it quick, but everybody knows hard positional bargaining, I win, you lose, which is a very common negotiation style that everybody engages. There's another one called integrative or interest-based negotiations, how to expand the pie to win-win by understanding other parties' scenarios and baselines, and then trying to see what's their interest, what are our interests, and how do we find unity pursuing those interests. And then there's the bartering mindset, which is the third negotiation style, which is understanding each other's positions. What do you want? What do I want? And then we barter or trade to come to a peaceful resolution. So highlighting those two additional conflict resolution strategies could be very useful, specifically with interest-based negotiations, win-win.
Great, really interesting.
I'd like to speak from the perspective of sort of educating journalists or informing journalists. And now I'm like, what? Oh, so I mean, I think I would look, if I was a peace builder, I'd look into where is the funding for this journalism coming from? You know, journalism struggles all over the world, and sort of incendiary language, which provokes conflict, also gets clicks, gets shared on social media. So if I was a peace builder sort of working in this country, I'd make sure, you know, to support independent journalism and to support training for journalists. You know, there are principles of peace journalism, and on the one hand, it's like there are, you know, there's a, like in the article, of course, had a lot of biased language, and you don't want that if you're working for peace. But you also need to support the journalists' living. So I think there are some opportunities for, you know, multilateral funding or stakeholders who are interested in preventing conflict to fund nonprofit journalism, or to support journalism that doesn't have to rely on sort of driving conflict for revenue.
Great, great. Thank you very much, Andrea, for sharing. If this is done, I mean, I can ask you to lead a little bit the discussion. How do you feel, and what are the ways in which you think such reporting influence the peace building projects on the ground? What do you think about that? Also about the power dynamics, or the sources?
Are you talking to me specifically?
To you or to someone else? I mean, whoever wants can take the floor.
I'll jump in with a quick response, which is actually a question. On average, most positive news stories are never covered. There's always the fear appeal that's very effective in the news media. How do we, one, emphasize those positive news stories? And then two, I don't know, for lack of better words, it seems like many people don't care. So how do we get people to care?
Okay. Does someone want to answer?
I mean, I think that's a great point. How do you get people to care? And I actually produce a podcast about how the media covers peace and conflict. So that is definitely something that I struggle with. You know, I'm sure you, sir, could speak to, or I'm sorry, I forget who it was. One of the moderators is a solutions journalism teacher. So the idea is, and there's evidence behind the idea that if you focus on solutions to problems in your journalism, whether that's negotiations or, you know, like, for example, there was a story, and I think it was Nigeria, that there are women who are being subject to sexual violence because they have to go into the forest to fetch water. But then there's a program where like they're providing water purification. So it doesn't leave them vulnerable in that way. You know, it can be a small thing, but to show that there's hope, to show that people are trying solutions, I think can get people to care. But like I said, it's an uphill battle, and the funding also has to be there.
Okay, thank you. I think maybe we can slowly go to the.
I was going to say, just maybe because we have 1 or 2 minutes left before the breakout rooms, and if no one else wants to answer that, fully agree with Andrea. Like as she mentioned, I am the trainer in solution journalism, and there is data, there are resources and research showing that the benefits in English, forgot. Thank you, of reporting on solutions. And not only, you know, in the like happy, everything is easy, everybody's friend, and we love kittens kind of way, but actually, you know, serious investigation where you look at who's funding it, why, what are the effects, talk about the people putting it in place, talk about the people that are the beneficiaries. Is it working? What's not working? It's a solution that is perfect doesn't exist. So we can also talk about the limits, but it also serves because when I read, I feel inspired. And if I want to adapt the solution to my own context, I already know about the limits that were encountered. And it actually, people kind of think that if we have this lead, like if it bleeds, it leads, that I hate in mainstream journalism. It needs to be bad. It almost needs to be trash, you know, like trashy to get the attention. But turns out people want solution. Because people are tired, the news it's affected their mental health, their hope for the future, and their belief in how it can change. In solution journalism, it's been proven that people feel better, they share more the kind of stories with their friends, they'll feel motivated, and it's more revenue for the media that practice solution journalism, and it's more time, you know, spent on each page. It's a all around pretty much beneficiaries. We still need, you know, journalism that calls out and focus on the problem, but we're trying to develop. And I don't know if you know, but there's this amazing organization. They're the leader in the world. It's called the Solution Journalism Network, and here they have all the resources. They have people all around the globe. Ambassadors, I'm one of them, for example, but in all the countries, and they have resources, and also they have what they call a solution story tracker, where they can list you stories coming from all around the globe in all formats, in all languages. I think they have a collection of 15 or 16,000 solution stories. So you can pick your topic or your region, and they'll give you a list of solution stories that were written on this.
Yes, and that's actually where I found that story. Is it pronounced Melanie?
Méline.
Meline. Yeah, that's where I found that story I was talking about the water purification in Nigeria. I also want to add, and the host of my podcast always says this, that there is drama in peace building. It's just a little bit hard. It's harder to find than the drama in violence. So, you know, maybe outside of the two men shaking hands, which is often men, what are the, you know, are there nonviolent protests? Are there stories of individual, and sometimes this comes after too, you know, stories of individual reconciliation, and sometimes also like this can be, there's arguments that it's more effective in fiction, you know, and taking the solutions angle, particularly highlighting the stories of like alphans and gammons, or betas and gammons working together, or even A beta and A gammon. You know, finding those emotional moments in peace building is really, it's just important to storytelling and to making people care.
Yeah. That was very interesting, very insightful discussion. Thanks a lot. So as you know, the goal of the session is to draft recommendations, because we need also your insights and your expertise. So I will send you in the chat, Christopher asked whether Méline could share the link to Solution Journalism, by the way. But the link I'm just sending right now is the link to the working sheet we have, and I will ask you to click on it and go back to plenary 2, which is page 12. So please go on page 12, and I will ask you to go back in the breakout rooms to answer the following questions. So as a peace building practitioner, develop 2 or up to 3 recommendations to journalists. Recommendation to journalists with the objective of changing the narrative. So the question is on page 11, at the bottom of page 11. So I will ask you to, thanks a lot, Méline. I will ask you to go back to the breakout rooms now. And these breakout rooms will last 10 minutes.
All your great recommendations are on the sheet right now, so we can read each other's recommendations. I've witnessed wonderful participation in the room I was in. I'm sure everyone else witnessed the same. So if anyone wants to share, what's the most important takeaway that you think journalists would take from the guide that we're trying to create? So what is it that you recommend? And we'll quickly share from a couple of groups. If everyone wants to share, just share one. And we'll be about time to close. Who would like to start?
I can start.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so our recommendations were to talk to a wide variety of people, not just leaders or generals, and then also people whose lives are affected directly or indirectly by the conflict, who might not be combatants. Of course, that includes marginalized and underrepresented groups. The second one is to use non-inflammatory language, focus on the facts. One of the words used in our article was toxic, to describe, not to describe a chemical, but it was used in an emotional way. So use language that avoids pointing fingers or inciting, you know, people feeling like they need to respond because they were insulted. And then the third one, okay, the third one was that the journalist should emphasize that peace building is a very long process, and sort of to set realistic expectations. Like I think people get discouraged and the news moves so fast that if there's not a resolution in maybe a few months or even a few years, people think that it's hopeless when history has showed that you can make peace. It just takes a really long time.
Very interesting. Thank you, Andrea. And as we are all thinking about the recommendations, I'm reminding you to fill out the forms that we have if you want to continue this conversation with us. Ileana just posted it in the chat. Anyone else wants to share their recommendations before we close?
I'll share a couple recommendations that we came
Sure.
to, that we put together in our group. I think, just kind of going back to the basics of journalism, of having the 5 H's, or W, sorry, 4 W's, 1 H, who, what, where, when, why, how. That's what I meant to say. Include those basics, and as was mentioned before, having the point of view of all stakeholders, big and small, those who are directly there, is very important in articles, and hopefully that comes through in quotes or data, and even fact checking. So that's I think one thing that of course can improve the quality of these articles and shift the narrative. Another thing that I would say is jumped out to me because of this role-playing exercise was, it's important to have the historical context, because when I read the fact sheet after reading the article, you realize there was much more going on, and it's helpful to understand how we arrived at where we got to this story. And so that is an important piece to include as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, it's very interesting. I'm sure we're going to read all of your recommendations. And if you would like to continue the conversation, please put your names in the forms, because you've all participated in this guide. And I'll leave it over for Meline to close for us.
Yes, our time has come to an end. I don't know about you, but for me, it went on really fast. So I wish we had more time to do more role play, do more questions, and get more into the recommendations. But we can keep going after the peace conference. I just wanted to thank you. I know I had interesting conversations. I enjoyed, hearing about your perspectives and seeing you role play with tweets that were very involved, and you felt very concerned by the way your community was treated in the media. And I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. If you want to get in touch with us to talk about the guide or to talk about anything else, we're always happy to meet new people, to make new friends. That's the whole point of Idoni. It's building a community of people who share values, but come to it from very different perspectives, very different ways, because we think we all have to learn from each other. And that's what helps do better journalism, which helps citizens being empowered and taking actions, which is all we want: more democratic, more anti-racist, anti-colonialist, feminist societies. And you have our contact in the documents. I think it's be shared in the Slacks too, in the chat, not in the Slack. It's, if you want to find us, it's our name at idoni.com. So Meline at idoni.org, Nicola at idoni.org, etc., etc. Yeah, I think that's all for today. If I know we're all in Europe, so it's night, so we're gonna start and enjoy the end of our week. But if you're not done with the conference, please enjoy the other panels. And we hope to be in touch. Have a lovely end of your day, and hopefully see you soon.